Waving hand, hey everyone! Welcome back to TechVerse Reviews, your trusted spot for in-depth tech breakdowns. We've officially crossed 10,000 subscribers with over 100,000 views and 4,000 hours of watch time, and I can't thank you enough for the support. Raising hands today, we're diving into a full performance benchmark test of the brand new Apple MacBook Air M3. From CPU and GPU speeds to real-world multitasking and thermal results, we're putting this slim machine to the test. Is the M3 chip just hype, or is it actually a leap forward? Let's find out. Which should you buy, a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro? It's a surprisingly tough question since you can't go wrong either way. Apple refreshes its lineup yearly, equipping its devices with better hardware and new software features, and there have never been more factors to consider when buying a new Apple laptop. So where do you start? You'll need to first consider a MacBook's computing power, storage capacity, display, and size. In terms of hardware, the MacBook Pro is the better computer. It's more powerful, has a bigger screen, and more storage, among other things. Putting all the size options together, there are currently 10 MacBook Pro configurations and 6 MacBook Air configurations. Let's review the main differences between the two to help you decide which one to purchase. The MacBook Pro comes in two sizes, 14 inches and 16 inches. The 14-inch MacBook Pro can come equipped with one of three M4 configurations: the base M4, the M4 Pro, and the M4 Max. Be aware that the 16-inch option, however, only supports the latter two. All three chips are high-performing, although there are notable differences. The M4 Max is the beefiest, with a powerful media engine capable of powering the most demanding tasks. Each chip has a different number of performance cores. The standard M4 has a 10-core CPU and a 10-core GPU. Apple's M4 Pro houses a 14-core CPU and a 20-core GPU. The M4 Max has the same processor as the M4 Pro, but sports a 32-core GPU instead. Apple's M4 MacBook Pro models also have different amounts of unified memory, ranging from 16 GB to 48 GB. This translates to strong performance when it comes to demanding tasks like video editing. For example, Apple says the standard M4 MacBook Pro delivers up to 1.8x faster image processing when compared to the M1 MacBook Pro, and the M4 Max goes even further with 3.5x faster performance for heavy creative workloads. Other benefits of the M4 MacBook Pro series include longer battery lives, extra ports, 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports and an SDXC card slot, and a higher-resolution Liquid Retina XDR display. Alternate versions of the MacBook Pro used to be available, including a 13-inch model and laptops running the M3 Pro and M3 Max chipsets. Apple has officially discontinued these variants, although refurbished units can still be found at third-party retailers. Best Buy, for instance, is selling a refurbished M3 Max MacBook Pro for $2,160. The M4 MacBook Pro is a solid laptop for most use cases, but if the base chip isn't powerful enough for you, choose either the M4 Pro or M4 Max. Remember that going big with the 16-inch Pro raises the price tag by an equally big amount. The 14-inch Pro starts at $1,599 and, with chip and internal storage upgrades, can go as high as $3,199. The 16-inch Pro starts at $2,499 and, with internal upgrades, can go up to $3,999. As for the MacBook Air, there are two 13-inch and 15-inch M4 models available on Apple's website. The older M3 units are no longer officially on sale, but you can still find the M3 MacBook Air at Amazon. The newest generation uses the powerful M4 chipset, and although it's not able to reach the same heights of power as the MacBook Pro, it's still no slouch. ZDNET editor Kyle Kucharski spent some quality time testing the M4 MacBook Air and praised the laptop's responsive performance. Across multiple benchmark tests, the MacBook Air performed quite well, even coming close to the MacBook Pro M4, and in some instances, outdoing the MacBook Pro M3. 13. Battery life is excellent, too, lasting over 14 hours on a single charge. Its Liquid Retina display delivers a crisp image, well-defined text, smooth, vibrant video, and support for 1 billion colors. Other notable features include the ability to support 2 external monitors while the lid is open and center stage, which keeps you in the center of the MacBook's webcam. The MacBook Air model has significantly fewer ports than the MacBook Pro, consisting of only 2 Thunderbolt 4 inputs, a headphone jack, and a MagSafe 3 charging port. Because there isn't as much hardware, the laptop only weighs 2.7 pounds. Conversely, the Pro laptop clocks in at 3.4 pounds and becomes heavier when housing a more powerful chipset. Multiple MacBook Air configurations are available. At $999, the cheapest model has a 10-core CPU, an 8-core GPU, 16 gigabytes of unified memory, and 256 gigabytes SSD storage. The high-end laptop, at $1,399, sports the same processor but instead has a 10-core GPU, 24 gigabytes of unified memory, and a 512 gigabytes SSD. You can upgrade certain aspects, like increasing the storage space to 1 terabyte. However, doing so will increase the price by $400, so be mindful of your shopping budget. If you want to save money, the base M3 MacBook Air is available on Amazon for $845. The answer mainly depends on how you see yourself using the laptops and how the display size and weight factor into that equation. A reliable computer is an investment. You don't want to spend too much on an overqualified laptop, and you don't want to buy a computer that's not powerful enough for your needs. Since the gulf between the two models isn't as big as in previous generations, the one you should buy depends on the type of user you are. If you're a graphic designer, music producer, professional photographer, videographer, 3D artist, or iOS game and app developer, a MacBook Pro would be the way to go. The Pro models can handle intense graphics processing and more software running in the background without significantly lagging, overheating, or slowing down. If you're a student or someone who spends most of your time in Microsoft Office or Google Workspace, a MacBook Air may be a better fit, as it won't put a burden on your back as you lug it around. If you want a MacBook to casually surf the internet, watch YouTube or Netflix, respond to emails, and FaceTime your friends, then the Air is perfect for you. No matter which model you buy, a MacBook is an excellent device if you want to expand your personal Apple ecosystem with a device that works seamlessly with your iPhone, AirPods, Apple Watch, and other products. Handoff, for example, allows you to switch FaceTime calls between your MacBook and iPhone, and your MacBook can easily access your iPhone files, messages, contacts, and photos. The recent U.S. tariffs on imports from countries like China, Vietnam, and India aim to boost domestic manufacturing, but are likely to drive up prices on consumer electronics. Products like smartphones, laptops, and TVs may become more expensive as companies rethink global supply chains and weigh the cost of shifting production. Laptops and PCs are also hit hard by the new U.S. tariffs, with import duties potentially increasing prices by up to 35%. Many major brands still rely on Chinese and Vietnamese factories for assembly, meaning consumers could soon pay significantly more for everything from budget Chromebooks to high-end gaming rigs. 23. These tariffs may accelerate efforts to move production to regions like Mexico or India, but shoppers can expect higher costs and fewer discounts in the short term. The MacBook Air M4 13-inch is on sale at Amazon, starting at $850 for the 16 gigabytes version. That's 15% off Apple's newest ultra-portable with its most powerful family of chips to date. Higher-tier configurations are also on sale, with the 24 gigabytes version 11% for $1,249. Before Apple announced the MacBook Air M4 in early 2025, rumors abounded on what new features the ultra-portable would come with. Partly because it was the last of Apple's core line of devices to get the M4 chip, and partly because, well, last year's MacBook Air M3 was, and still is, one of the best laptops we've tested, a future-proofed AI computer for the masses that could be seen as a successful culmination of Apple's design. At no point can the Apple machine stop producing, however, so with the MacBook Air M4 it was apparent it would be an incremental upgrade, refining what made last year's version great while offering a little bit more for less cost to the consumer. The MacBook Air M4, for example, starts at $999 for the 13-inch configuration with 16 gigabytes of memory, $100 less than last year's M3. At the same time, the hardware expands on both the low and high end, with the lowest tier configuration of the M4 equipped with a 10-core CPU and 8-core GPU, in contrast to the 8-core M3 chip from last year. On the other hand, the high-end configuration offers 32 gigabytes of unified memory, which was previously capped out at 24 gigabytes on last year's M3. This combination of improvements for base components and a lower starting cost is strategic positioning on Apple's part to incentivize the new devices and stay competitive in an increasingly crowded market. The MacBook Air M4 is a fantastic device, but it's also a natural continuation of the product line, which some might see as a boring update. Depending on who you ask, that could be a good or a not-so-good thing. You can't fix what isn't broken, but I think there is some room here for a few more bold design choices. One of the most obvious is the MacBook Air M4's new colorway, Sky Blue, which is a very subtle blue, a very cautious decision when I was expecting something a little closer to Microsoft's Surface laptop. All that being said, there are certainly some features on the M4 MacBook Air that set this year's ultra-portable apart. Let's break them down. One of the most anticipated and sought-after features of the MacBook Air M4 is its ability to support 2 external monitors while the lid is open. This alone opens up new possibilities for work, productivity, and creative tasks and makes the MacBook Air more competitive with 3 working displays. The laptop's own display still looks great, as well. Apple's Liquid Retina technology provides crisp, well-defined text, smooth, vibrant video, and support for 1 billion colors. Maxing out at 500 nits of brightness, the display on the Air M4 doesn't get as bright as the MacBook Pro, but it's still bright enough for the majority of use cases. I am a little surprised there isn't an option to upgrade the M4 Air with the nano-textured glass we saw on the M4 MacBook Pro, however. Maybe we're a bit spoiled now, but the glare is noticeable enough for me to wonder why, of all the possible things you can upgrade this laptop with, that isn't one of them. The other thing about the display I don't love is the notch for the camera, which results in a chunk of otherwise valuable screen real estate blacked out where the lens is located. If you keep the toolbar toggled on, it's something you can get used to, but with apps in full screen, it's definitely noticeable. While on the topic of productivity, the MacBook Air M4 excels at more than just multiple displays. For one thing, video conferencing on the Air is a joy. The webcam's hardware got an upgrade, from the 1080p FaceTime camera from last year to a 12MP camera on the M4 Air with Apple's new Center Stage feature. We first saw Center Stage on the MacBook Pro and iMac last fall, and its addition to the Air is one of the many features that bring the ultra-portable a little closer to its older Pro sibling. If you're unfamiliar with it, Center Stage keeps you focused and centered in the frame no matter how you're positioned, handling the visual logistics of the call with minimal input from the user. To me, it seems less like a standalone feature in its own right and more like the inevitable future of webcam technology. This is how webcams should work, and Apple's innovation here presents a polished experience that is equally enjoyable for work or personal calls on FaceTime. The combination of top-tier hardware, a seamless and well-integrated product, and quality-of-life features just makes the video call experience overall better on a Mac. I use a Windows device as my daily driver, and although I've used Macs for years in the past, I forgot how effortlessly the MacBook Air can handle multitasking through a combination of the Launchpad, split screen, and talking directly to Siri. Additionally, improvements to how windows are tiled are satisfying for those of us who like our desktops arranged in a particular way. The MacBook Air is still a battery-efficient device, and although Apple's Silicon line of processors set the standard for battery performance in ultra-portable laptops, the rest of the market has had some time to catch up. That doesn't mean the MacBook Air has fallen behind, but it does have some competitors now. During my testing of the M4, I got over 14 hours of battery life with the device running a 4K video at half brightness, which is about where I expected it to be and about the same as last year's MacBook Air M3. 40. By contrast, Microsoft's Surface laptop got over 15 hours during the same test, and Asus ZenBook A14 came in closer to 20. The latter, of course, doesn't match the power on board the MacBook Air M4, but it is lighter, thinner, and packs a gorgeous display. That alone puts it in competition territory. Yes, the MacBook Pro M4 will last longer as well, but the Air is thinner and lighter and much less variable. The difference in battery drain is minimal depending on what tasks you're putting it through, barring persistent, intense workloads, 0.45. The bottom line is that for users who commute into the office a few times a week, you can reliably count on the MacBook Air M4 to last the whole day if you forget your charger, even if you're taking a few video calls. Putting all that hardware to the test, the MacBook Air M4 performed very well in our benchmarking, coming in very close to both the MacBook Pro M4 and MacBook Pro M3. As these devices leave their predecessors from just a few years ago in the dust, they get a little bit closer to each other. So, what about the things I wish Apple did differently? Well, many of my gripes about the MacBook Air M4 are nothing new. For one, there are still only 2 USB-C ports, both of which are on the left-hand side of the device. If this felt limiting for you before, not much has changed. 45. Second, Apple's devices remain some of the most locked down when it comes to repairability, keeping consumers strictly bound to Apple's repair and service model by barring the use of salvaged components. The company has made strides toward a greener business model when it comes to production, but a loosening of the strict control over parts replacement would go even further. The MacBook Air M4 is still one of the most complete packages you can ask for when it comes to creativity, productivity, and everyday use. The M4 Air's sleek and lightweight form factor set the standard for ultra-portables, and not much has changed with its design since, for better or for worse. The MacBook Air M4 is still one of the most complete packages you can ask for when it comes to creativity, productivity, and everyday use. The M4 Air's sleek and lightweight form factor set the standard for ultra-portables, and not much has changed with its design since, for better or for worse. If you have an iPhone and enjoy Apple's ecosystem of products, the MacBook Air is a solid choice as a main driver. If you already have a Mac that's more than a few years old, the MacBook Air M4 will feel like a significant upgrade. If you have an M2 Pro or M3, the leap will feel less noticeable. If you're coming from an older Windows device, well, you'll wonder how you ever took calls on your 720p webcam at all. Considering all of this, the MacBook Air M4 is a modest upgrade from its predecessor, but pushes the line forward overall. In fact, with burgeoning Apple Intelligence features, the same camera technology as the MacBook Pro M4, upgraded hardware, and a lower starting price, the MacBook Air seems like the most logical choice for a new Apple laptop in 2025. So, that wraps up our performance testing on the MacBook Air M3. It's sleek, powerful, and surprisingly efficient. But does it justify the price tag for your needs? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Speech balloon backhand index pointing right if this review helped you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our next deep dive. We're on the road to 20K subs, and your support keeps this channel growing. This is TechVerse Reviews, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay tech savvy. Wrench sparkles.